Hey, what's going on, Rise to It family, and welcome to May 1st, 2023, Mental Health Awareness Month kicking off. We have a very, very special guest talking about depression, anxiety, things that just affect every single one of us, or everyday people, you and I. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. For this particular episode, parental discretion is advised. If you can rise to it, you can rise through it.
When your back's up against the wall, just know you got a place to stay. I know sometimes it gets hard, but all you gotta have is faith. If you can rise to it, you can rise to it. If you can rise to it, you can rise through it. Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, family, and welcome to another edition of the Rise to It podcast, your home for personal and professional development. My name is Jonathan Hernandez, a.k.a. the letter H, and with us today, we got Mr. Frankie Lee. What's going on, Frankie? What's going on? What's going on, Frankie? Frankie, May 1st, 2023, Bartlett Middle School. Talk about that. We were just out there. Phenomenal event. What's going on?
Man, those images look like fire, dude.
Yes.
Always into it, you know, with the kids, the lip syncing, like those are the favorite pictures that I like to see and take. The kids really get down. You can tell, I saw a lot of crowd shots and everybody was just into it, immersed, looking at the speakers. It looked like they were at a concert. Like it really did. Like every time I see these pics, I'm like, man, these kids are having a good time. I don't remember having stuff like that when I was in high school. Like real talk, or even elementary school. Like I don't remember being lit like that.
I know, right? Yeah.
You know, with the DJ and the speakers but what was your experience like?
Yeah, the Changemakers Conference, we had our homegirl, Brittany Jacob, ABC 30 Brittany Jacob. She always brings it. So the students were really excited to her, but not only the students, but the teachers, the admin was there. I mean, they had like a circle around the students, and they were just excited to be there and be part of the environment. So they showed us lots of love, energy from beginning to end. It was kind of said like they don't do as many rallies, and they've been wanting to get us. So I got to give us a huge shout out to Tiffany Lightfoot. Tiffany, shout out to you, and Mr. Enrique Lopez, because this has been kind of in the making for a while for us to visit Bartlett Middle School. And so now that we were there, I mean, we had a great time. We gave it $1,000, that Rise to It 1K giveaway. Shout out to two students, Love Singh and Shania Sanders. Shout out to you. We got to give them a ring, the Rise to It 1K winner. What's going on? So Porterville, California, man, PUSD was great to get in there, and feels like home. So, phenomenal event. Students were just attentive, lots of energy, and afterwards, man, I don't know if DJ Sal or Dre told you, we were signing a lot of autographs afterwards.
I saw those pictures. Behind the backdrop, I saw Dre getting hit up a lot, taking his pictures, and DJ Sal. So, when the students are out taking pictures with the speakers, they're engaged, they felt like a certain way, like they were moved by the speakers, right? And like how you said, like all the admin was there, so like I know that's a big help, but like that's a big reason why the kids are being so active, because they have the support from all the way up into the leadership, right? So those are the fun schools, like I know I've heard stories where you've been in rooms where it's kind of not like that, but man, it makes a big difference when there's full support from everybody, for sure.
It's a full team effort. It's a full team collaboration, and so the teachers have a big say in that also. And when they're supporting, I think the events go smoother. Whether it's high school, middle school, we rock the little kids, but of course we love the colleges too, because their directors are there and the students are just attentive. So we appreciate, man, Bartlett Middle School Changemakers Conference. Shout out to every single one of you. We hope to be back very, very soon. But as we talked about at the very beginning, May 1st, 2023, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And with us, we got a very, very special guest, Lisete Oyervidez. Shout out to Lisete joining us for the show. What's going on, Lisete? So thank you so much for joining us. We got our mental health expert. We do a lot of bullying. We do a lot of mental health seminars across the valley, across the country. Okay. But you're the expert today. We brought you in for a reason. You know, we've heard a lot of great things about you from a friend, from a friend, from a friend. And so thank you so much for joining us first and foremost. But talk a little bit about your background. Where did you go to school? What city did you grow up in Central California? Because I know you're a Central California girl.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, I'm Lisette. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I was just telling the gang here that I was born in the Central Valley, born and raised here. I was my parents are from Farmersville. That's where I was raised. I went to Exeter High School. It was still the time where there was no high school in Farmersville. And then after that, I went to college. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, go Mustangs. Then I came back home. And so I've made my life here. Yeah. So I live here with my family. I have a couple kids and my husband.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Farmersville, and I heard you live like around the Visalia area.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I live here. Yeah, I live here and I practice here in Visalia.
Excellent. So Farmersville, we were actually out there not too long ago. I got a tamale plug. One of the studios actually hit me up, and those are some bomb ones. So Farmersville, shout out to you guys. They're a good time.
Yeah.
But when did you find your passion, your purpose to go into your specific lane career-wise?
So when I went to Cal Poly and I was a social science major, my thought was when I was graduated from high school, I was going to do sociology, but they didn't have that major there in Cal Poly, so I had to pivot. It was social sciences, and I went the route of social work. So while I was in school there, you have to do an internship, and I did an internship at the district attorney's office working with victims of crime, and then at the domestic violence shelter. And so that kind of brought me into this route of social work, helping people. Then I graduate, come back home, and I find a job here at the Victim Witness Center in Kings County. And so I worked there for a few years, and then I moved on to work as a probation officer, more law enforcement stuff. So I was there for a few years, working mostly with juveniles and their families. So again, already part of oftentimes their services that they need to complete for the courts is to get mental health counseling, either themselves or their family. So that's when I begin to find out what are some of the challenges that our families have, especially challenges in finding resources, finding mental health resources, getting themselves in there, or what's going on with the family. So that was first exposure to that. Then I move on in my career. I decide I want to go work at Child Protective Services. So I did that for a few years, Child Welfare Services. And then I decided I wanted to go back to school. And so then I started my master's program at Fresno Pacific. Yeah. And so, and I've done other jobs along the way, but I have a long history of working with families, with kids, with individuals, in mental health. Yeah.
What was that like moment when you really discovered your purpose? Because we talk about passion a lot, right? Like in our group, and we've kind of stopped saying that because other experts, they're like, well, people have multiple passions. Yeah. But when you find your purpose, that's like when you get into your career. So working with youth, was it something that triggered you like, yes, this is what I want to do for the remaining future?
So I think for me, I always wanted to be a helper. So my parents are immigrants, first generation. Me and my older brother were, we did the connection of services, right? Interpreting for your family. My parents are monolingual. They only speak Spanish. And so I know like it was really hard for them to be connected with the community, right? I mean, there's lots of deficits because of the language barrier. And so that was like my passion is working with the Spanish-speaking community. I think in all of the jobs that I've had, whether it's been in probation, a social worker, working with different clients who are developmentally delayed, my heart's always working with students, right? Getting information, students, and the families who need the connection with resources, who don't have that, who are Spanish speaking, which we see a lot of that here. Like I know you guys were talking about school, and a lot of our families, our immigrant families, get their first information from school, or even are connected with social services or mental health services through the school. Like that is their first point of connection. So that was my experience growing up, and so my goal was to give back, right? Go get educated, continue my education and training, but give back to the community.
Lisette, I don't think we've really talked about this, you and I, and I've known you for a while. Being a woman of color, a person of color, did you have that foundation growing up of talking about mental health, talking about your feels, as the kids say nowadays? Did you have that experience growing up?
No, I think like my experience, like a lot of the experiences that my clients have, is in our families, we didn't talk about our emotion. I think my family was, again, my parents were immigrants, and I want to say we, because obviously as part of the family, we're on survival mode for a really long time. And when you're on survival mode, there is no room or time to talk about your emotions. You can't complain, not allowed to complain, not allowed to, even to celebrate certain things that you're going through, whether like what's the importance of graduating from junior high or, graduating from high school. Oftentimes there's not a lot of room for those kinds of celebrations, right? So now this was something that I had to learn in my life, right? And I knew that there were just deficits in those areas, and it's a skill. I tell my clients, like, it's a skill. We're not born knowing that. It's something that you have to continuously work on. Like learning how to, so the word in therapy is introspection, right? Learning how to notice like what's going on inside of you, not just outside of you.
We're in the month of mental health, right?
Yeah.
Mental health awareness. What are some myths that you hear daily in the media, maybe from your clients, just regular people, about some of the mental health issues that are surrounding us every single day?
So something that I hear very often is like that mental health or therapy is for people who are crazy. That's like the number one thing that I hear. And of course, I tell people, I'll first get the call. It's like, oh, my spouse says that I should go to therapy, or these people in my life tell me that I should go to therapy because I'm not okay, And so I tell people, like, therapy isn't for people who are crazy. It's for people who want to take some responsibility in their lives and are ready to be accountable for their behaviors, and who want to change, right? Who want to learn and grow and change, and
Would you feel that somebody who like voluntarily wants to get therapy would be similar to somebody who would want to like quit drinking, like they want to get that change? Or do you feel like they got to be pushed to the therapy, or is it something that they got to like admit first, like not to say they have the problem, but they're battling with some issues? Like, do they got to admit to that before they go?
I hear your question, and I think for men, and this is for not for every man. I mean, this is a bit of an overgeneralization, but and I'm not picking on you guys because you guys are men, but I'm just saying, like, men usually will come to therapy, and women too, right? Will come to therapy because something's going on with their jobs, or something's going on within the family. So you're talking about alcoholism or addiction or whatever. So, along those lines, if a person usually feels like, hey, I'm losing my family, or there's a threat to lose that, then you will see the person, make that transition into therapy. And sometimes it just doesn't take one time, right? Sometimes it could be, I read this statistic about how many times does it take a person to leave a physically abusive relationship? They say it takes up to 8 times sometimes. And I think in therapy as well, sometimes it may not be the first time, because you may not have it may not be the right fit with a certain clinician, or it may not be the right time in your life, but maybe it takes a few tries, So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it
like,
does.
and oftentimes the family, I think, is whenever we're dealing with addiction or any kind of mental health, like, we don't grow up, we don't live in a bubble. We are impacted by family, we're impacted by our coworkers. So sometimes it takes like a nudge from a lot of different people in our life to just say, hey, yeah, like, it's okay for you to do that. Sometimes we need permission from people to say, yeah, like, you need to move in this direction, or it's okay for you to go there, So, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that, because we're talking about men especially, and I like how you said, no, I'm not going to speak on all men, right?
Yeah,
'Cause,
no,
I'm not going to generalize. because in our group, it's interesting because we all have different dynamics. We were just at dinner the other day with Frankie and Celeste. Celeste is behind the camera today, but we opened up a lot about like our family. And I know Frankie, he was just eating chips there the whole time, like listening. He's such a great listener, but he's also able to contribute to the conversation where a lot of men cannot do that. They don't want to do that, right? Yeah. What I've seen over the years in academia, especially the higher that a lot of my colleagues, whether it's grad school, a lot of the stress that consumes all of us, the higher you go, having a therapist, having someone there, like a crutch to lean on, like an assistant, that really is what it is, has been normalized in higher academia. And my students, and I know, Frankie, you've talked a lot your students, and some of your students just open up to you in the classroom, right?
With me, like I grew up like you did, first generation. I'm first generation American, where mental health was never discussed, and to be really honest with you, like I didn't even know that was even a thing where we could get help. Like not until later, till like after I was married, and it's almost like that saying, you can't teach a dog like new tricks. An old dog. I'm an old dog. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like one thing that I battle with, it would be anxiety. So and sometimes like what you said earlier, you said like it's easier to deal with the stuff that's happening like outside our bodies, but inside our bodies, there's some things going on and we're a little confused or anxiety. Like sometimes I like to overthink situations and I get in my own head. But I don't see myself, I'm just being honest, I don't see myself going to get the care, but it's just unfortunate because of just the way that I was raised. And I know I gotta break that cycle, and I wish we had more support for like the Latinos and other like minorities to get that type of care.
I think it is unfortunate because, I think there's a lot of cultural stuff to that and I think this is just maybe in the culture of like our Western society, right? Like men are not, I think the most part, even as little boys are not socialized to take care of relationship, right? As opposed to women. Now this is obviously traditional, right? In a society with traditional gender norms, maybe it's changing now, I think a little bit, but I think women are mostly socialized to take care of relationship, and men are socialized to be providers. So of course, like this is not something culturally too. I think for Latinos, like, how you're socialized to be a provider, and so if something's going on with being a provider, maybe that's what gets you into therapy, right? But if you're okay, if you can continue and do, we adapt, you're able to adapt in different ways with anxiety, maybe healthy ways or maybe some unhealthy ways, like then we will continue doing whatever works. I mean, we as humans, I think we're masters of avoidance, right? We can try to avoid a situation in different ways, whether it's eating, drinking, going out with friends. I mean, and all of those things are good things to some point, but they can also serve as ways of avoiding what goes on in the inside, thoughts, feelings, right? And so, I mean, it's part. I mean, I would say it is a challenge. It's a challenge I think that all of us deal with, whether it's men or women, because women avoid too.
So how would somebody know if they need the care or the help?
So I usually tell clients too, like it is about impairment, right? And so this is the word in insurance, right? Insurance pays for impairment, mental health, but it's if you feel like you're not able to function at work, at home, or out in the community in the way that you want to function, or you want to show up in a way that's better, or maybe you have to make a big presentation for work, and if you're not able to do it, then I would say, okay, well, maybe that's messing with your income, right, or your job, or the way that you want to show up as a professional. So maybe some therapy for that. Or if it's a really significant relationship and it's impairing the way that you're living out that relationship, then okay, maybe that's an opportunity, time to go. People will often come to therapy when they've already tried everything else. We've tried We've talked about it at church. We've prayed about it. We've drank about it. We've talked about it. I mean, we've talked to our friends, and they're like, dude, like, stop calling me, you know? Like, you know, we do that. And I know when I get the call, I know before the client walks in, they've already tried everything. And oftentimes it is a last resort, you know, because they don't know how else to fix it. So, and that's okay, you know, because maybe some people don't need to go to therapy, and, you know, they can figure out ways to work it out, different healthy ways. That's okay.
It really depends on the person.
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of my friends, I kind of push the boundaries, like on friendship, like for me, because I want to see how far I can take the friendship of like, is this a person I could talk about mental health with, stress, anxiety? Yeah. And more than often, especially nowadays, we treat it just like we're talking sports. It's like, oh man, I'm anxious about this. I mean, Frankie, I think when we started developing our relationship, like he was very upfront about that, and I appreciated that. And even therapy culturally for us, you know, we have that kind of second guessing, like, I don't know, like this is what I've heard. So I think on TV, we see like the person on the couch and we see the therapist with the glasses and they're sketching. I don't know if they're actually paying attention, right? So maybe kick down some knowledge, Lisete, about the true experience of what someone can expect within a session with you.
Well, I think, so I've done, you know, I think I've been fortunate enough I've done my own work, and I continue to do my own therapy work just because I need it. I need that support for myself. And so I know what it feels like to be, I'll tell my clients, like, I know what it feels like to be on the other side of the couch. Like, it's nerve-wracking. You know, when you start, of course, you know, you make the phone call, you don't know what to say. Before we had scheduled this, I think this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, you know, people who are thinking about it and to normalize, like, what is this like? So when I first did it, this was like a gajillion years ago, like I just went through my insurance and I found someone and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what are they going to ask me? What is this thing, you know? And so navigating that experience, and it's really hard for now, and I think it's always been difficult to find a provider, somebody who has availability, who's taking new clients. I always hear a lot of people that say, oh my gosh, I've been looking for someone and it's been months and months and I haven't been able to find someone. So you make the phone call, and you're going to be nervous, and it's okay that you're nervous and that you're anxious. I will tell clients, like, when you come into the waiting room, don't run out, because the feeling is like you want to just run. Like, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here, right? It's okay. Like, that's how it should feel, I think, because you're walking into a space where you're going to meet a stranger and share these things that make you feel vulnerable. You know, not everything in the beginning, but I would say give it some time to, once you find somebody that you're able to work with and somebody that's going to be a right fit for you. And it's not everyone's going to be a right fit for you. You may meet with a clinician and you just don't, for whatever reason, like you don't like them, you know, or you don't like the office, or it's weird. Go find somebody else. It's just like a doctor, you know, and it's a different experience. So it's okay that you feel nervous. It's okay that you feel anxious about it. But part of it is just trusting the process, right? Trusting yourself and learning to trust your instinct. Like, okay, this is going to be good for me. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit, you know? Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think with my students, I always challenge them, because they go to a counselor, then a lot of that blame is on one counselor. Like, well, this person she gave me the wrong classes. He gave me, well, what other counselor did you see? That was it. Yeah, dude. So you got to go a little bit deeper than that,
and,
you know? So,
and sometimes it's like, okay, you were having a day, or the counselor was having a day, or maybe it was you're really overwhelmed. I mean, that's why I say give it a few tries. So I usually tell clients it takes maybe 4 to 6 sessions to figure out. Probably about four. Like, is this going to work? It's not going to work. I mean, you're there to develop a relationship. This is what we don't hear on TV, what we don't hear on social media. And this is my personal take on therapy. Like, I'm very relational based. So you're there to develop a relationship with a client. It's a professional relationship, you know, therapeutic relationship. So it takes time, you know, and to healing takes time too. There's not a fast solution, unfortunately. Yeah.
Self-awareness is something that I see a lot with my colleagues. You know, all of them that have talked about therapy and they go regularly. I've noticed that they're very self-aware of their strengths and their weaknesses as well. Do you think that's one of the positive characteristics about going to therapy and learning more about yourself? Because it's really awesome when I'm around my colleagues and they could talk about their weaknesses and be open about that and transparent about that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the. I think that is one of the benefits of doing the work, of doing therapy work, is you get to know more about yourself. But even with that knowledge, like, you grow and you're better able to, maybe react to certain situations in a way that's healthier. So it is, and part of the other work too is, like, embrace yourself. Like, if you just are, that's something that I learned in grad school early on. Like, I've always been, and probably because of experiences that I've grown up, like, I've been more drawn to, like, to working with clients who experience trauma, right? And it's a hard field, because it takes a toll on you. But I think for me, that's the pace that I like, working with clients in that way. And so I know that about myself. There's other clinicians that don't like to do that. And so that's okay. But I had to learn to be okay with myself, that I was okay in working on call. I was okay in working these really challenging cases. And I had to learn how to figure out, like, how do I live my life and working these really stressful positions, But that's part of who I am. That's what I like. If I work in other spaces like maternal mental health, like, I don't know if that's for me. I haven't done it, but it's not something that draws me out. That's a great field, but I know it's just not for me. And I've learned to embrace that part of myself.
Yeah. What are some popular activities you see your clients do, like, nowadays to help their mental health?
Yeah, so usually one thing that I always recommend, or I recommend a lot of things to clients, but, I think one thing is sleep. Sleep is such a big deal. Like, I think, we kind of take it for granted. We're in this really busy life, right? Like, we're always hustling, we're always working. I mean, at some point I had 3 jobs, right? And so exhausted, tired, but sleep can really, if we're sleeping 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours every day, it will improve your mental health significantly, right? Whether it's, especially with anxiety or just feeling like depressed, low mood. If we're able to get the rest that we need every night, it makes a big difference, right? When we're not in bed and just thinking and trying to think something to death. Like, we need a rest. Our body needs to rest.
When it comes to rest, like, especially college, the norm is you're going on 2-3 hours,
Yes.
right? Coffee all day, Starbucks runs, and Red Bull, right? I'm guilty of the Red Bull, but I'm really, really proud of my students, especially nowadays, because when I started teaching at the college university level, it was about 12, 13 years now ago. And this was not really brought up, mental health. There would be some students, I'm feeling a little bit down, and I'm going through some stuff. Now it's just super transparent. Like, I'm really anxious about this semester. There's stuff going on in my family. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling anxious. How do you see, especially post-COVID,
Right.
how do you see this unfolding for the next few years in education and in society? I mean, we see commercials all the time, and I think it's a great thing, in my personal opinion. But what are your thoughts, like, on the future on mental health?
My hope is that I think there is a public service announcement, or there's an organization in California where it's, and I'm trying to think of the quote, like, mental health is the same as physical health. My hope is that the same, that mental health, a person's mental health is elevated to the same level as their physical health, right? And I think I notice, even, so I work with veterans, and part of their, when they go to the doctor, oftentimes I'll hear them say, like, that they have to take, they're in the military, active duty members, like, they have to take these certain questionnaires at the doctor about anxiety or depression, and it's just part of the screening. That's what it's part of screening. It's already being normalized in some way in the medical community, which is good. And I think now hopefully there's more resources at schools too. I know in elementary schools, they're hiring more school counselors even at the elementary school level, not just at the high school. So kids' social and emotional health is not treated, but it's being looked at, right? And so communicated, to teachers, and that know that it affects like their learning. And so, my hope is that there's more resources for people. I mean, there's not enough clinicians. There's not enough clinicians of color either, for both men and women. I think that's important too. Representation matters, even in the mental health community.
Hey, I'm about to give you the down on that. There we go. When you're talking about the representation for me, and then going back, and now I'm putting these pieces, that's a professor, me putting these pieces together. You talked about prayer earlier.
Yeah.
Now, organically, us on the team, we're all believers, and we didn't have like an application like, Frankie, sorry, man. That's like, we didn't mark that checkbox. You have to let you go. Two finger spread, right? Yeah. All of us organically, we talked about that. And again, we're not trying to push religion, or that's not what we do. That's just who we are on the team. With that, especially growing up in Latino, Latina, Latinx, if you want to call it that, we often are just encouraged to just pray on it. And what I've understood from a lot of my students is sometimes prayer, well, you need people also, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe what are some of the things that you found in your home, your upbringing, that you're like, you know what? No, I want to push it to a next level. For me personally, I always feel God always puts people in our lives that could help us. He's like, hey, dummy, like go talk to somebody right there. That's a perfect person, a perfect resource.
Right.
What are some things that you see maybe culturally that you were growing up with, embedded with, and maybe you think differently nowadays?
So, in terms of faith, like I grew up in my family, they're believers, like, that's a significant resource, I think, for anyone, and whatever denomination you believe in. I mean, it's been shown, they've done research where faith is it's a natural resource, internal resource for anybody. And being an FPU, that's it's a Christian college, Christian university. I worked and I learned how to integrate faith in counseling, because if a person believes, like, the faith is always there. It's the other thing in the room, right? It's the other thing in the counseling room. Your faith, it's a resource. And so, I grew up with that. It's part of what helps me do the work that I do, to be kind and compassionate to people, and know that the step that people are taking, whether it's to get individual work, couples work, or because they're bringing their child in to counseling, I mean, it's the thing that helps me look at the client with compassion and empathy, because what they're going through is really challenging.
Yeah. Now, Lisete, you work in the families, and do you do also solo work, right? So, like, talk about that a little bit, like, specifically.
Yes. So I work with individuals, families. I work with couples, and I work with kids. Like, so anywhere from 4 to 100, or however.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I enjoy working with the little guys too.
With mental health, it's not like you're selling something concrete, or even like with physical health, if you break your arm, there's like a cold cast, there's all this technology that there is for that. So with mental health, what are like the latest research or developments that you're doing to stay up to date in this field?
The work that I drew, the specialization, the work that I drew is trauma informed, which is a lot of our mental health clinics and a lot of clinicians are moving in that direction. So a lot of the new research is we have better ways of studying the brain and knowing how the brain reacts to certain things, right? And so the work that is coming out is working, and there's always been this work, but just updating, is working with the body somatically. So there's this thought that we have trauma happens, and trauma is just any instability that happens in your lives, right? It could be it could be a car accident, up to somebody, passing away or losing someone or going through a divorce or something. That could be, all of those things could be traumatic to a person. Trauma something could be traumatic to you that may not be traumatic to me, depending on the resources that we have or our resiliency skills. But learning to work with the brain, there's newer modalities like EMDR. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and it just helps reprocess trauma. So that's new, just some newer work. And it's not that new, but I mean, it's something that more and more clinicians in the Central Valley are practicing. I mean, it's play therapy is integrating it with neuroscience, right? Understanding how our central nervous system impacts, it helps us regulate our emotions every day. And then bringing that to little kids, right? Bringing that, how do you work with that with the 4-year-old? And you do it through play therapy and different modalities. So it's learning about the body and integrating the mind and the body. I think that's a big push in that.
So another question. So when you guys study the brain, what's that process like? Are those based off questions from you, or is there like a computer software that they go in and then you get all this data, or how's that being studied?
So in terms of the modalities, it's part of, and the modality is just a way that different styles of doing treatment, right? Like a modality would be working with sand tray. And so, and how do you integrate the brain? It's like just basically knowing what the brain does. So the brain has different parts of it. There's, I'm not going to get into all that, but the brain has different functions, and knowing what parts of the brain are being activated, like when you're working in the sand with a child or an adult, right? It's just like, learning how to activate certain things, like when a little kid loses a game and they go like berserk because they lost, right? Or they lost a sports game. It's like,
or an adult, right?
Or an adult, right? It's like, okay, how do you calm yourself down? So in the office setting, it's like sometimes you have to provoke certain things to figure out, like how's your kid responding, or how's the client responding to this? But at school, it's just like, it's just learning the different parts of the brain, the theory, and the people who do this work with, the literal brain are like the big wigs and research universities and stuff that is beyond my purview. I wish I could do that, but no.
Wow, those are some interesting questions. I didn't know. I didn't even think about like the little ones and playing in the sand with them. And I was man, I'm a grown man, but that sounds like fun, right?
Yeah, even for adults, you do sand tray. Yeah, you do sand tray and you play in the sand. I mean, that's the language of kids, right? Is play. And it's even for adults, like we just play different, right? It's just different, but we play and play.
We play different. I like that. That's really cool. Yeah. We met through a mutual friend, Miles Vega. He's from Visalia. And I love my guy. He's actually been to a few of our events, and he always rocks the Rise to It shirt. I love the language he uses because I'm big, obviously, on communication. I teach that. But when he's talking about therapy, and he's done his thing in counseling for many, many years, I noticed the men he surrounds himself with, they go to therapy as well. And they did normalize like the language and the process of it. And I'll always remember one of his buddies, he was talking about how he's, I'm going to therapy, man. But he says maintenance. I'm going to go get some maintenance done. He's like, just like a car, we don't take that sucker all the way down to E, or we have to get oil change. There's certain things that we have to do in order for it to function in a proper way. Yeah. And so I think even those examples, that makes people feel comfortable. Like, yeah, I'm going to go for maintenance. Even when I'm doing well, I want to go to maintenance. And then, of course, if it's on the opposite side, I thought that was really, really good. And I think we try to treat that with my classes too, especially in interpersonal communication when we're talking about like a whole couple of chapters of mental health. So the language we use, I think, is really powerful. And then obviously the different ways that you guys treat mental health for different age groups. It's really commendable. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's important to, like you said, normalize normalize that mental health is just as important as physical health. I thought about like in my family, I have a couple of my siblings. They're also in the mental health field, and they just do different things. Like my younger sibling, he works with my younger brother. He works in mental health as well. And he's more of a behaviorist, and he works very well with teens. And so I have a sister who works in a nonprofit, and I have a brother who works he's more law enforcement, right? Corrections is his thing. But it's like we're all in this thing together. And it's interesting. We come together, and my parents are like, like they're still not comfortable in talking about their feelings,
Really?
and then like, here you are, you have these 4 kids and we're all kind of doing our thing and they're just not there, and it's okay. Like, but you have to be compassionate, with people around you, and also not shame people for not being okay with mental health. Like, they're not ready yet. They're just not ready, and it's okay if you're not ready, because there's other ways of healing too. Mental health isn't healing. A lot of people heal through sports. A lot of people heal in their faith. A lot of people heal in meditation or other alternative ways. Like, we heal in different ways, and all of those ways are okay, as long as it gets you to the place that it gets you. We don't heal alone either. We heal in community. So even if it's a group of friends and you guys go camping every so often, like, that could be really healing, So.
No, I think that's beautiful. I love that community aspect that you threw out there, because in Rise to It, like, when we have conversations, again, I try to push that. I just want to see where people are at. If they're uncomfortable, then I'm like, all right, I'm good. Frankie's always been one to just listen. And that's something that I've learned over the past several years. There's more power in listening than there's actually speaking. We do speaking, but when I'm listening, I'm learning, right? And so Frankie's always been that guy where he'll listen, and he's very empathetic, and he's really open to new things now too. So, really props to my guy right here. Yeah, for sure. But Andre and Sal, we do have deep conversations in our group, no matter the success or the opposite too. We normalize that conversation. I think it comes out in an organic way when we do hit the schools and talk to different schools. But Lisette, before we get into the lightning round, can you please take a moment to chat about what most you enjoy about your career? I mean, a lot of people will look at your line of work and be like, wow, like, you probably need a drink right after a session or two, right? What are some of the positives that you see daily?
Yeah. So I think, when I see people grow, right? Oftentimes in working with clients, we work for, I don't know, however many months you work with them, I always notice, and I always remind them of the way they came in, what they first looked like, how they first presented in session, whether they were really depressed or they weren't really motivated or they weren't where they wanted to be in their life, and after they've done some work, it's like, just always identifying like the gains that they've made, even little ones. It just could be like, yeah, I made through that presentation, or, I got the job that I wanted, or I moved, or I left a relationship that was unhealthy for me, or, hey, like, it took me this long, or I'm in this relationship, but it's better now. I feel better. I mean, even just little things. When I worked in community mental health, I think so I worked with kids in foster care, and when they would reunify with their families, like, that was with their parents or whoever they had been separated from because of, abuse, and when they were able to reunify or just find a place that was good for them, and they were doing good in school, and, they were in sports, and they're just doing well, like, that's huge, because their life, they're going to impact so many other people in their life because, they benefited from services. So, yeah, that's always, it's the little things that are really powerful.
I got one more question before we get out of here to the lightning round. So for the students listening at home, and not just the students, but for everybody, I know, me being a teacher, I have students who are going through an episode like a panic attack, and I do excuse them to go outside, or they want to get their breath and stuff like that. But what's some advice that you can give?
So something really simple for anxiety or panic attacks. And we get panic attacks because we're holding things in, right? And our body doesn't know what to do with that, and anxiety is just fear, it's worry, but we're holding things in. So let it out. Find someone who's able to listen to you. And that's hard, right? Because kids with social media, and if you tell one friend, then they make a TikTok video about it. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. But creating some healthy relationships, and just some simple things is breathing, just breathe. And know that, like, however you feel right now in this minute, it doesn't mean like you're going to feel like that in the next 5 minutes. It's hard to imagine that when you're going through the panic attack. I've experienced them when I was younger, and I was going through my father was very ill, and so there was lots of worry, and it happened to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? And so, yeah, just breathe. Just take a nice deep breath. I love the fact that you let your kids go out and take a break. Maybe something else that could be helpful, like in the classroom, right, is if you give your kids like a Post-it note, because kids are often embarrassed, right, because no one likes to feel different, especially our kids at school. So if you give them a Post-it note, and if they just go up and kind of, or you see the Post-it note and they walk out, they went to go out and get a breath or take a break. Without having to raise their hand and say, because I've worked with some kiddos who are like, oh my God, like, I don't want to raise my hand because then everyone's going to know something's wrong with me. And so, because of that feeling, right? So it's like, hey, if you have this pink Post-it note, then I know, teacher, student, we know you went out to take a break. Something simple like that. I mean, yeah. And breathing, you could even do something like 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, and 10 minutes in the evening. Just some deep breathing and focusing on your breath, right? And just focusing on, your breathing in and exhaling out. And the key is exhaling very slowly, right? Like you're blowing out some birthday candles. So that's kind of the key to this deep breathing. It's free. You don't have to take medication, and it works within seconds, and it helps calm down your nervous system. And then if you want to do some exercise, I think exercise, obviously with the breathing, if you're a runner, if you walk, like that's really helpful as well. Yeah. So there's lots of, strategies that you can find these strategies on YouTube, 4-square breathing, just deep breathing. Yeah. It's more effective and quicker than taking a pill for anxiety.
Yeah. I will say that like I had anxiety, and it was like my second or third year teaching.
Yeah.
And it was just all brand new to me, teaching and me coming from industry. I didn't go to school to be a teacher. So, so it was just a big shock, and I was, I came from being in my office to where I really didn't talk to a lot of people, just in front of my computer doing my thing. And I went from that to being in front of literally about 200 students a day, so, so I got a lot of, I guess they call it stress jaw. So I got a lot of stress jaw, and it was just uncomfortable. So my wife made me an appointment to go see the doctor, and right away, the first visit, they were quick to put me on like a pill or something. A medication, and it was long-term medication, or I want to say it was like a 6-month program. And so I was just very surprised to see how quick like a physical doctor would give you medication off a first visit. And I was like, no, I'm just a little stressed, but I don't think I need that. So lucky I didn't take the pills. I never took the pills, and I've been fine since. But I'm sure there's people, I know there's people who do take that medication, and then you get people stuck on all these pills. So is that your like, I don't want to call it your go-to, but do you prescribe medication if they need it or not?
So no, I don't prescribe medication. As a marriage and family therapist, you don't, or licensed marriage and family therapist, you don't prescribe medication. So you would go to a psychiatrist, you would go to a doctor. One thing is like, when you go to a doctor, doctor's always going to, they're looking at it from a medical perspective. I think the majority of doctors don't have any or probably very little training in mental health. And so, they want the client to feel better, and medications are a tool. I think that it's a tool to help you feel better, and they do work. They do work, but of course they have their side effects. Now, a lot of people don't. Like, I have a lot of clients who come in, I've been to the doctor because I had a panic attack, or I ended up in the emergency room because I thought I was having a heart attack, and it wasn't. You're actually just having a panic attack. It was just intense anxiety, right? And so medication's just a tool, I tell clients, and sometimes we need the medication to help us get through a certain situation. And then it's learning the different tools to figure out, okay, how can I manage my anxiety, or how can I, if I know I'm beginning to feel depressed, how do I help myself feel better, right? How do I get out of that? Some people might say, oh yeah, I'm like feeling a funk, or I'm feeling a certain way. Okay, then how do you manage that? And there's people who are maybe not able to manage their symptoms without medication. That's okay. So they just find a medication, hopefully that that works well for them. But medication's just a tool. That's the way that I and I help clients, and that's part of the stigma. I think of mental health. It's like, oh yeah, the doctor's just going to put me on meds. Well, okay, and it's just, you could just need it for that time, and then continue to have conversations with your doctor about it and figure out what is your end goal. Like, I want to learn how to manage it. Okay, then your doctor might not be the person to help you with that. You may need to go to a different professional to help you do that so that you don't need the medication.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Lisete Oyervidez. Let's go. Lisete, man, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Now, it was a pleasure to get to know you and your background and your career, but we're going to get to know you in this lightning round. So, Frankie, go ahead and kick off the instructions for your portion of the lightning round.
All right, Lisete, so I'm going to give you 5 questions, and you only have 20 seconds to answer them.
Okay. All right.
And they're easy questions,
okay.
so. All right, here we go. You ready for number 1?
Yeah.
What's the most interesting place you've ever traveled to?
Well, a place I want to go to, I haven't. Belize.
That'll work. Belize, okay.
That's my next trip.
All right, number 2, if you can only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably like my mom's enchiladas. Red enchiladas.
You can't go wrong with mom's cooking. Yeah. Okay, so what's your favorite way to relax after a long day of work?
Binging on Netflix. That's my guilty pleasure.
Number 4, if you can live in any time period, which would you choose?
I don't know, like back in the 80s. I don't know.
Okay.
The
Diamond Girl.
I don't know.
Let's do it.
This is a fun one. What has been your favorite age so far?
When I was in 8th grade.
Nice.
8th grade was
That was quick.
a good time.
You liked 8th grade?
We got to check the yearbook, see if there was a boyfriend up in the mix, right? Yeah, okay. That was pretty fast.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Those were fun. Thank you.
Excellent. Round of applause for Frankie's lightning round. Round of applause. All right, Lisete, these are going to be a lot faster, all right? A lot faster. So here we go. Your favorite sitcom growing up?
Three's Company.
Ooh, that's nice. Okay. A surprise artist or song in your musical playlist? No gangster rap? No, that's...
I mean, the typical Tupac.
Okay,
I don't know.
Right.
That's part of the playlist.
There we go. All right. One new thing you do to better your mental health?
It's not a new thing, but like walking outside.
Yeah.
Like, that's my thing. I go out and I walk and I try to solve the problems of the world during that time.
All right, so if I see
as I'm listening to a podcast.
There we go. The Rise to It podcast. Right. Listening to that. What is your hidden talent?
I'm bossy. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I've had to be like first, oldest kid, second oldest kid.
Lisette's go-to snacky snack.
Like peanuts.
Like planners, like the little like package.
Like peanuts are
All right,
peanuts.
I know what to get you for Christmas.
Yeah.
All right, like sponsorship right there.
Yeah.
If you were not doing what you do now professionally, what can you see yourself doing?
Probably teaching. Like, I've always, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a teacher, but for whatever reason, God didn't send me in that direction, and I don't know if maybe later on that's in the stars.
Specific age group though.
I would probably want to teach probably like grad students.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's go.
In mental health.
Okay.
Yeah, teach them.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Lisette, where can our viewers get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can email me at creatinghp@gmail.com. It's very creative. And then my work phone number, 559-909-9667.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know this is a topic that a lot of people feel uncomfortable with, but you definitely made us feel comfortable, and I know our viewers are going to feel comfortable. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Family, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Rise to It podcast. May 1st, Mental Health Month. I know you took a lot of great things from this. 2-finger spread. Try your best to stay positive, and as always, if you can rise to it, You can rise through it. We'll catch you later.